Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. So today we're going to be talking about something that is very, what's the word? Present? Relevant to my life. I talked about this last week on last week's episode, but I am turning 26, and when you guys see this, I'm going to be 26, which is absolutely insane. I don't even know how to begin to even process that. But it means I am on the tail end of my mid-20s, and it also means that my frontal lobe has developed. So that's what I want to talk about today. I feel like that terminology is thrown around a lot. I feel like people always joke about like, oh, like my frontal lobe is developing. I can feel it. And we all come up with like these funny ways that we feel like our frontal lobe is developing. But I honestly didn't know and have a lot of information on like the actual science behind it and what like it actually means. So I spent a little bit of time on ChatGPT and Google researching about it. And my therapist has mentioned it to me, but I wanted to do a little bit more research. And then I also wanted to really talk about how I feel like I've actually noticed those changes in my life, and if what they say happens when your frontal lobe develop actually happens, and the ways I feel like it's actually changed my brain and my sense of self and the way that I operate in this life and all of the things. And I also just wanted to talk about kind of to give a comparison, like how I felt, how I acted, how my brain felt, how I dealt with life at 18 versus now, just how not only different I feel, but kind of specifically some of the key things that have changed within the last 8 years. Holy crap, 8 years since I was 18. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it has. And that's fine. It's good. It's a good thing. But it is scary getting older in a lot of ways because you feel like, you're running out of time. And I've talked about all these things before, but I want to talk more about all of that today. So let's start by just talking about what is the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is the part of the brain responsible for cognitive functions like planning, problem solving, emotional regulation, and impulse control. It also plays a key in our social behavior and decision making. And when does it fully develop? The frontal lobe reaches maturity around age 25 to 30. Now, the reason it says that is because for women, it's 25 to 27, but most sources and things that I saw said 26 exactly. And then for men, it actually doesn't fully develop until like 27 to 30. So men take a little longer for that frontal cortex to, or the prefrontal cortex, is that what it's called? The frontal lobe to develop. Anyways, so this maturation explains why we often experience increased emotional stability, better impulse control, and improved decision making as we age. So, how does this actually impact us? Well, they claim that as the frontal lobe develops, we gain the ability to plan long-term, manage emotions better, and make decisions that align with our values and goals. It's a time of emotional regulation, self-awareness, and self-assertion. So it's funny because my therapist, even the other day, she said to me, I said like a statement about a certain situation I was going through and like a certain boundary that I was setting or something. And then she asked me some type of question. I can't remember exactly what the context of the situation was, but I remember her looking at me and being like, your frontal lobe is for sure developed. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? She's like, I can see that it's developing and that it's developed. And she even told David, my boyfriend, like, oh yeah, like I can see significant changes in Nicole since her frontal lobe has developed. So that made me really question and wonder like, okay, what has actually changed for me? And how do I feel as an adult now versus when I was 18? Because when you're 18, everything's so fresh, and adulthood is like, it's the beginning of adulthood. And so, it just made me really start to think and contemplate about the changes that I feel in myself. And it's really funny because I wouldn't say that I feel like super great right now in my life. I don't feel like I'm a higher version of myself, a better version of myself, and that I'm like all great. I think the older I've gotten, like the more I've seen that like I don't have it all figured out, and like I'm always changing and I'm always going through things that grow me. And I think it's hard because I think we don't often notice the change that's actually happening within us until someone points it out, or until we face a situation where we have a different attitude or a different perspective, or we go about things a different way. And oftentimes it's not really easy to even identify that we did do that. But I think that's why reflecting is really cool, because this gave me the opportunity to really look back at 18-year-old Nicole and be like, how would she deal with these similar situations that she's going through? How would she feel about herself in a similar place? Like all these different things, it made me really start to contemplate and think about how different I am. And in a lot of ways, I feel good about the ways that I'm different. And in a lot of ways, there's parts of being 18 that I miss, and parts of how I operated that I miss. And I think I'm, again, on the front end of everything. You know, they always say like your 30s is your best because you're like very regulated and you've kind of figured out what you're doing with your career, and you're kind of at this place where things are like, you know, figured out in life, I guess, even though I don't think there's ever a time that really happens. But I think I'm kind of on the tail end of the chaos. And so maybe I don't feel the way that I'm supposed to feel, or not that I'm supposed to feel a different way, but I guess it's just hard because I think if I were to go back to when I was 18 and ask myself, like, what is your life going to look like at 26, and what are you going to look like, and who you are, like, where are you going to be at? And I think it's easy to look at that and say that I definitely thought I'd be quote unquote further along in life, by whatever that means. But I also feel like my perception of life and what actually matters have changed a lot. So I want to talk about all of it. So I want to start by, let's just compare some of the ways I felt and was at 18 versus now at almost 26 in 3 days. I got 3 days, guys, so maybe if the frontal cortex could just give me all the good stuff, I got 3 more days. Anyways, okay. So let's jump into this. Okay, I would say one of the biggest shifts that I've felt, like I've really felt in my emotions, is I used to feel really extreme highs and really extreme lows. And I mean this in terms of everything. I mean this in terms of like happiness and excitement, and also like sadness and anger, you know, all these different emotions. Like I feel like when I was 18, if I was going through something really emotional or something very emotionally intense, I felt like very intense sadness, like super intense. But I also felt like in moments of excitement or times that I felt happy, I was like so happy and so excited. Like I felt much more extreme emotions. And it's funny because I was talking about this with someone the other day, but like now I feel like very much more like neutral all the time. So it's like when I am experiencing something really tough and I feel like 18-year-old me, you know, up to 25 would have kind of maybe a more intense emotional reaction or feel it a little bit more, I don't feel it as much. It's like, it's not that I'm not sad, but I don't feel like that sadness affects me as much. I'm not as sensitive to the emotion. Like I am more comfortable sitting in that emotion and not letting it like absolutely ruin my life. Like I feel like when I was 18, if I was sad or if I was happy, that's it. It was like so black and white. And if I was sad, I couldn't allow myself to be happy. But like now if I'm sad, I can identify that I'm sad and feel it a bit, but it doesn't necessarily really change what I do in a day and or my ability to also experience small moments of joy or contentment. It's almost like it's a little more comfortable to live in that emotion. But on the other end, it's a bummer because I feel like the ways that I used to be so excited about life and about things that would normally just get me really, really happy and over the moon, I don't feel as much of an emotional reaction to those either. Like I feel like I still have moments of happiness and of joy, but they don't quite hit the same. They don't hit as hard. They're not as intense. And it's more of like a joy feeling. Like, oh yeah, like that makes me happy. Like I have joy, but it's not like this over the moon excitement, which I think has totally made me, a lot of these things and the frontal lobe developing have really made me question like, am I happy? Is there something wrong with me? Do I care? Because I'm not experiencing these like intense emotions that I used to feel, in my early adult years. So that is one of the biggest notices I've seen in my day-to-day life from my frontal lobe developing is like just a very much a regulation of emotions. Like it's much more just stable and in the middle than it is like high or low with happiness and or sadness, like really any emotion. Not to say that I still don't feel emotions, but I feel them so differently. It's easier to like live in them and not let them like super disrupt my life either way, which again is hard on one end because it makes me question like, do I really love this? Am I ungrateful? Anytime I experience moments of excitement or happiness. And then when I am not feeling the deep sadness that I used to feel or anger, it's like, oh, like, do I not, am I numb? Is there something wrong with me? Like, do I not care about this? But on the other end, it's such an amazing thing that has regulated because it makes life a lot more doable and relationships a lot easier because you're not having these extreme emotional reactions. So that is like one of the main ways that I have seen a shift. Well, okay, just to back that up, it's saying like the brain science behind that is the frontal lobe's development allows for better emotional regulation and impulse control. So we talked about that. The next thing that I really noticed is I feel like at 18, I was definitely more influenced by outside opinions and had a lot less self-respect. I think I cared a lot more about what others thought of me, and I definitely didn't really know how to give myself the same love and respect that I gave to others, which is hard because I think part of this is just like a trauma thing and stems from my attachment style from a kid, from when I was a child and some of my unhealthy relationships that I've been in. But all of that to say, I do feel that now entering 26, I'm very much less influenced by other people and by their opinions of me. Not to say that there's still not a part of me that cares about what people think about me, but I care so much more about how I feel about me, how I feel about the choices that I make, and also how I feel like God feels about me. And so I'm not as uncomfortable with people disliking me, and I'm not as uncomfortable with upsetting people as I used to be. Again, if I'm doing it out of a place of making a right choice or doing something that I think is good, even if I know that it's going to maybe offend or hurt someone or a certain way that I live, I don't let that hold me back from being authentically myself or whoever it is that I think that authentic version of myself is. And I think that's been really evident in a lot of decisions that I've made, even, on this podcast. Like 18-year-old me would never have this podcast and would never share the things that I share and would never have the courage to speak up about some of the things that I've been through and about the church that I left and the religion that I left. Like 18-year-old me would absolutely be crippled with anxiety and fear in doing that because of a fear of what people would think about me and if I would hurt people's feelings. And the way that I would be viewed. And the older I get, the less I care about that, and the more I care about doing what I feel like is right and what I feel like matters. And also just staying in my own lane. Like, I feel like that's the beautiful thing about life, is like, you're your own person, and what you choose to do has everything to do with you and has nothing to do with anyone else. And as long as we're being respectful and kind and loving and trying to have good morals and values, if something that we do hurts someone, it's not necessarily our fault, And it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to change your behavior. Like, I know that sharing about things that I've been through hurts people who have hurt me. And I know that sharing about the church that I left hurts people in the church or offends people. And as much as I don't like that, and that's never my goal or my intention, I'm also okay with that. So that is definitely a big shift I felt in myself since 18, which the kind of the science behind that is, as the prefrontal cortex matures, we develop a better self-regulation and self-assertion. So that's something I really have felt like has happened. And then the next big thing that I've noticed is when I was 18, I was definitely more inclined to say yes to people, even when maybe I didn't want to, or it wasn't the best for me. But now saying no, I like actually can do, and I actually prioritize saying no more than I prioritize saying yes. I remember like seeing a quote, I think when I was younger, maybe 18, 19, 20, about like, be a yes man, like say yes, take the risk, take the opportunity, like say yes to going with your friends, say yes to doing this, say yes, say yes. And even though I think it is a beautiful thing to say yes, it's also totally can be to our disadvantage in so many ways. Like, we only have so much emotional, physical, mental capacity. And so if we're saying yes to everything in our lives, we're never actually going to have the time for the things that truly matter. So I think one of the most powerful things you can do is say no. If something is going to hurt you or cause damage or pain to your life, and it's not for the betterment of your life, like it's not something that's going to make you grow, you don't need to say yes to it. You don't need to say yes to every career opportunity or every friend invite, like there are times when saying no is so important, because we have to reserve the time and the energy and the capacity for the things that we really, really care about. And then whatever is left over, you can give, but you're not giving out of an empty cup. It's like if we say yes to everything, we are just constantly pouring out of an empty cup. And when you're pouring out of an empty cup, you really can't even give. You can't even give genuinely and purely. Now, all of that to say, I don't think that we should live self-serving lives and not consider others. And there are many things in this life that are really good that require sacrifice for us. And we have to be selfless to say yes, and we have to put our things and our feelings to the side to serve others. And I think serving others is beautiful. And that's a part of like growth, right? And it's like, we shouldn't not go to therapy because it's uncomfortable. It's like, no, it's uncomfortable and it's time consuming and it's an investment, but it produces growth. It produces good fruit. And so all of that to say, like, you just have to be wise in what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. And I think saying no is a powerful thing. The more comfortable that I've gotten with saying no, I feel like the more capacity I've had for the things that I want to say yes to that are actually good and that not only better my life, but better me. And so saying no is so powerful. And when I was 18, man, I did not know how to say no to anyone. If something made me uncomfortable, if someone mistreated me, if I didn't want to do something, I just would always say yes because I always felt bad. I was always so concerned with how the other person would receive me saying no. And I wanted to say yes because I wanted to please everyone so badly. But you like literally cannot please everyone. And I love this. The Bible even says this, like your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes. And I think when you don't have the confidence to say no, it's really hard to follow through on your yeses. So like the things you say yes to, you want to be able to stick to them and follow through. So you don't want to be someone who says something and then doesn't follow through. And that's something I'm very much working on and aware that I've struggled with in the past, but I think it's because I've always struggled with trying to be what everyone needs me to be. So that is one of the biggest shifts I've seen, or one of the big shifts. And what it says, like the brain science behind this, and this is just from the internet. It says, as the prefrontal cortex matures, it becomes easier to assert boundaries and prioritize self-care, which I feel like is very true. Okay, the next thing is something I've definitely struggled with, but I feel like at 18, and this kind of relates to my extreme emotions that I felt, but I had so much excitement around like chasing goals and succeeding in life, whether that be in a relationship, in a career, an amount of money, an amount of success, an amount of whatever. Like I would get so stoked and excited and motivated by all these things, right? And I think a lot of us naturally do. And I obviously have a very unique life, and I've shared this a lot with you guys, but I feel like the Lord has really, really shifted my perspective on money, on success, on all these different things, because I've experienced so much goodness in the last couple years, and it's honestly left me empty. And I've just seen that all those things that I worked so hard to get don't actually make you happy. So I feel like at 18, I was a lot more motivated and excited and eager to do things. And now it at times honestly is a lot harder to get motivated to do anything. And I didn't really also appreciate slowing down or resting when I was 18. I felt like slowing down and resting was like lazy. And now, the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that rest, and that doesn't mean you just sit on your butt on your phone for hours, but rest and unplugging from social media in the world and resting and being present in the small moments and setting aside all the things of the world and in the world to focus on you and your well-being and your health and your relationship with the Lord and the people in your life. It's really good. Rest is really good. And so now at 26, I don't feel as excited about life in ways. I know that kind of sounds bad. And I think that's something I've struggled with when I say like, oh, I'm having a midlife crisis. But I think part of having a midlife crisis is that your brain is literally changing. And so you don't feel the same ways you've always felt. And it kind of makes you question your whole like reality, which is really interesting. But let's see where I lost my place. Let me see. Okay. I've learned to enjoy resting and appreciating mundane moments. And the small choices I make, like relaxing or being mindful, actually impact my overall well-being, which is something that ties into this. I used to think like the big decisions were so important, and that's all I focused on. That's all I got excited about. That's all I cared about. But the older I get, the more I realize it's like the little decisions every day. Waking up and spending time seeing the sun, spending time reading your Bible, spending time, making a nice glass of lemon water before you have a coffee, and a nice, breakfast before you have all the sugar. Like all these little decisions that we make every single day, they actually impact our well-being and our sense of identity and our sense of self-esteem so much. It's like our life is like a sum of all these little choices, not necessarily the big ones. So I think it's just changed my perspective a lot on that. So, and yeah, kind of the science behind that says is as the prefrontal cortex develops, we become more mindful of how our small actions affect our mental health, leading to a deeper appreciation of the present moment. Okay, the next one that I feel like is so different is I had a way bigger social battery when I was 18. I definitely don't have the social battery that I used to have. At a certain point, I can start to feel that social battery shutting down. And when I was 18, I feel like I was just a social butterfly and could talk to anyone and go anywhere and be with anyone. And I had the energy and the capacity to do it, but I just don't anymore. It's very different. Okay, the next thing that I feel like has very, very, very much changed is my body image and just my self-esteem. When I was 18, I definitely struggled with my self-esteem, my sense of self, and I definitely tried to change my natural features, very much so. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I care a lot more about just enhancing my natural features and appreciating myself for the unique person that I am. Like, I don't look in the mirror and hate myself the way that I used to. And it's not like I look at myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the prettiest, most amazing person ever. No, it's much more just of like kind of just this love. Like, I love myself, I accept myself, and I don't need to change all these parts of me to be beautiful. Like, I've noticed that the more that I lean into my natural features, the better I feel, which is funny because when I was 18, I was like always dyeing my hair, always, wearing the dark makeup and all these different things and trying to wear these like really crazy colored clothes. And I don't know, like I went through so many different styles when I was 18. And like the older I've gotten, the more I like my brown natural hair. I have like a little bit of highlights in my natural hair now, but it's my natural brown color, which I never thought I'd have because since I was 18, actually no, since I was 16, I've been dyeing it like a darker brown because I felt like my natural color washed me out. And now, like, I love the natural color of my hair, and I love my bushy eyebrows, and I love the natural curls in my hair and just all these things. I used to go to tanning beds and do anything I could to have this really tan skin. And now, like, I like my skin tone. I like the way that I, look it because it's just me. It's just like an acceptance of it. So I've definitely felt a big shift in that way. And the science behind that is as the prefrontal cortex matures, we develop a greater self-esteem and acceptance of our natural selves. So I definitely feel like I have experienced that. And the next thing I've really noticed, which is super interesting, is I've noticed my body like literally fights me. So like if I am experiencing mistreatment or if I'm doing something wrong and I don't want to, my body like screams at me. Like, I used to be able to push through and power through so much abuse and mistreatment, and just I used to like let things just go, let things just fly. Like, anything that happened to me, even if it was wrong, even if I was hurting, I just somehow like mentally would just like push myself through it. It felt like I could just like mentally work through anything and just allow anything. And now, if something is happening that I know is wrong, or if I'm being treated a way that I know is wrong, my body like fights at me. Like, my body physically like shuts down and is like, Nicole, no. You can't. And so when I was 18, I did not feel that way at all. And yeah, I just didn't really recognize mistreatment, and I tolerated a lot of unhealthy behaviors and dynamics. And I guess my toleration for that has gone down. Not to say that I still don't experience some of those things, but I've definitely grown a lower tolerance for mistreatment. And I'm not as afraid to stand up for myself as I used to be. I used to be so afraid to stand up for myself, and I'm definitely not anymore. So that is good. And it just says, as the prefrontal cortex matures, we gain the ability to recognize unhealthy patterns in relationships and assert our boundaries to maintain healthy dynamics. So that one's a really good one. Obviously, that's a positive. All of these are positives, but it's also hard because you're changing in all these ways that for the most part are positive, but they're just so different, which then makes you question everything, and it's like uncomfortable because it's also new. So we're figuring it out. The next one that, difference I've seen in myself from 18 to 26 is my relationship with God and my perspective on my relationship with God. I feel like when I was younger, I definitely saw God in a way, when I first left the church and all these things, even though my relationship with him was so pure, I felt so connected to him and I felt so in tune with him. And anytime I didn't, I was distraught. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've just seen that a relationship with God is so two-sided. Like, you can't have a one-sided relationship with God. You're not always going to feel him and feel his presence, especially when you're not spending time with him and when you're not choosing the things that he would choose and you're not living in, the path that he really leads you down. Not to say that you're going to be perfect, but when I look at seasons where I felt very distant from God, I'm able to see, oh, I don't feel God right now because I'm not actively trying to spend time with God right now. I'm not, letting go and pushing away this sin that I keep committing. Like, I am actively just numb to him because I'm not choosing to open the door to let him in. Like, truly. And so it's like, it's taken pressure off my relationship with God in a way, because when I feel far from him or when I struggle, I don't necessarily feel like, oh, God, are you even there? I more am like, oh, well, I believe that you are there, but also you're not going to barge your way into a house with the door locked. So I think it's changed my perspective on my relationship with God, which has been hard and good at the same time, because I've definitely struggled to maintain a very close relationship with Jesus. And I've definitely struggled to really just walk with him and spend time with him. But on the other end, I feel like it's good because I don't feel so high and low with it, because I understand that, kind of like I said before, all of the little choices we make do lead us to our reality. And so there is, a reason to feel certain ways or to not. Okay, the next big one that I've noticed is, and this kind of ties into what I just said, but I did not realize how much my small choices and habits impacted my life. At 18, like I said, I thought it was about the big choices. But now at 26, I understand that every action has a positive, negative, or neutral response. Every single choice you make in life, what you choose to eat, what you choose to drink, what you choose to watch, what time you choose to wake up, how much sun you see, like every little choice that you make, there's either a positive, a negative, or a neutral consequence and or response to that said thing. There's no running from the little choices that you make. But what I feel like is so powerful about that is that it empowers me to desire to make good choices from a pure place and from a place of just like understanding. Now, on the other end, I feel like what's good about it is that when I don't make a good choice, or when I make a choice that doesn't result in a positive reaction, I take accountability for it. I don't blame it on God or the world or people. Like, I can see that my choice had a consequence and or just reaction. And even if it was neutral, and now I'm responsible to either change that choice, make a better one next time, or stay living in the consequence of a bad choice. So it definitely puts more accountability on yourself, which I feel like is a good thing, but is hard at the same time. And kind of what it says about that is that as the prefrontal cortex matures, it improves our ability to think long-term, recognize cause and effect, and make decisions that align with our values and our goals. So, and I think that ties into just as I've gotten older, my desires have changed so much. Like even with this podcast, like I feel like I went through a crisis with even this podcast, and I honestly feel like I'm still trying to figure it out. But like, why am I even doing this? What am I doing it for? Why does it matter? And like, is it a good thing? Because when you're just doing something to do it and or for the wrong reasons, I don't know. I just think when you're young, it's like you just do stuff. And as you get older, you actually think about stuff before you do it. And so I just value so much more than success or, I don't know, gain, whether that's followers or whatever. I have no desire to do anything that doesn't matter to me and that doesn't align with what I love and what I feel like is important and who I am. Like I have a deep desire for this deeper purpose. And if I don't feel like I have that in whatever it is I'm doing, it's a lot easier for me to walk away from it. And so that's what's been really cool about this is that I feel like I am realigning who I am. And part of that is this, because it's obviously a very vulnerable podcast and trying to figure out what it is I'm even doing and why. Because that matters. And the older you get, the more that you care about that. Yeah, I think overall, like I've experienced a lot of changes and they're uncomfortable and they're weird because I'm not used to feeling these ways. And I think that's part of the reason I maybe have struggled so much this last year. I feel like in 2024, I really struggled with just who I want to be and who I even really am. But I think there has been a lot of change and growth, and there's been some good, some bad. I've made a lot of bad little choices and big choices, and I've made good ones too. But I think I'm getting used to who I am now and the way that my brain has actually changed, because it's like legitimately changed, which is crazy to think about. So it's definitely uncomfortable and different in a lot of ways. And I think I'm just starting to rediscover who I actually am in this new grown-up brain and body. Yeah. So it's been interesting, but yeah, I hope that was, whether it was entertaining for you guys or inspired you or helped you guys feel less alone within the changes you're feeling. I hope it did that, because it has been a really uncomfortable, ever since 24, I've struggled a lot, but in different ways than I used to. And I think I am still trying to figure it out and figure out who I am and what I want to do and what matters to me. And it's uncomfortable and hard and scary. And going into 26, honestly, my hope for 26 is that I am just able to start to really be intentional with the things and people that matter in my life and really, really sacrifice and give to those things, whatever that looks like for me. And I think I'm still trying to figure out what that is, but I think 23, 22, I was so focused on being what I thought I wanted to be, merging my life to other people. Like, I feel like TikTok played a huge role in that, like when I first got on TikTok and I first started having traction, it was like, oh, I just want to be successful. And then I got into this rabbit hole of posting all these videos, and I've changed so much. Like the last year, I can't post like I used to because I'm like, what am I doing this for? Just to gain followers? Like, it's just, I don't want to do that. It's like doing things that I used to makes me sick. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that matters, like quality over quantity. So those are some of my mottos: quality over quantity, be more intentional, and freaking just let myself figure out this new brain that I have. Not that it's new, but it's different and it's weird. I feel so different. I feel really different. It's scary. But yeah. But I love you guys so very much, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. Please let me know if there are certain topics or things you guys want me to talk about, or certain guests that you guys want me to bring on. Let me know. I am in the process of getting a ton of stuff batch filmed because I'm going to Europe in like a month. So if you guys have ideas or things you want, please let me know. Give me all your ideas, and let me know if there's any ways that I can support and love you guys. So yeah, without further ado, I will close this episode out. You guys know, if you want to support me, you know the drill. Go and share this with a friend on your social media. Give the podcast a rating and review. That really, really helps me. Send me an email, send me a DM, any of the things. But yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys next week.